Thank you for joining us today for Accelerating Adoption of Digital Curriculum for Student-Centered Learning. You may notice that your audio is muted and it will remain so throughout today's event. Please use the Q&A to submit questions to our guest speakers throughout today's webinar. I am Jill Hobson, Institutional Program Manager here at IMS Global, and let me introduce my colleague who will be working with me today throughout today's webinar, Kara Jenkins, Marketing Communications Director. For those of you who may not be familiar with IMS Global, we are a nonprofit member collaborative. Our members include leading districts, state organizations, higher ed institutions, and educational technology suppliers, working together to innovate and improve EdTech ecosystems to enable better learning for better learning technology through plug-and-play integration, open architecture, and the assurances that come with IMS Global certification. Each member district has evolved their own unique strategy and approach based on their unique situation. Yet all of these districts are collaborating on the open IT and integrated curriculum architecture that enables this flexibility. And now let me welcome our guest speakers for today's webinar. Jeff Radley, Director of Learning Resources for Keller Independent School District in Texas. Joe Griffin, Chief Technology Officer for Keller Independent School District in Texas. Tom Ingram, Director of Information Technology for Escambia County School District in Florida. And Barbara Nesbitt, Executive Director of Technology for the School District of Pickens County in South Carolina. I'd like to invite each guest to introduce themselves, tell just a little bit about your district, and make a quick opening remark regarding your district's technology environment. Could I begin with Jeff?
Sure, yes. My name is Jeff Bradley. Like Jill said, I'm the Director of Learning Resources, and I really work a lot on the C&I sort of things in Keller ISD. Work closely with Joe Griffin, who's going to introduce himself next. He's with our technology department.
Yep. Joe Griffin, I'm the CTO, Keller ISD. We're a district of about 35,000 students and just getting really into the digital environment right now with our students.
And now can I ask Tom, please, to introduce yourself?
Hi, this is Tom Ingram. I'm the Director of Information Technology in Escambia County School District in Pensacola, Florida. We have about 40,000 students and about 50 schools, and we have lots of devices for our students to use and lots of tools available as well.
Thanks. And Barbara?
I'm Barbara Nesbitt, Executive Director of Technology in Pickens in South Carolina, and we're a mid-sized district, about 16,000 students. And this is our third year really being pretty immersed in the IMS standards with our digital ecosystem. With a single sign-on platform, we have a learning object repository and a learning management system, and just a plethora of digital resources that connect sometimes in 2 or 3 different ways for teachers to use as they see fit for student-centered learning.
Well, thanks all of you. Appreciate your introductions. And so now we'll go ahead and get started. And so, you know, Joe and Jeff, the digital learning environment we all aspire to is one with a single username and password that can be accessed anywhere, anytime, on any device. It allows access to all content for consumption and rich media tools for contribution and creativity and problem solving. Students have their own voice for learning and so on. So can you two tell us about how Keller is developing its digital learning environment for communication, collaboration, creativity, and critical thinking?
Sure, absolutely. This is Joe talking right now. We've started this about actually 3 years ago, getting all the infrastructure in place to do this. And really what's taken off in the last year for us is having that tie-in with curriculum and instruction and with Jeff Bradley, and he's going to kind of go through the process of where we are right now.
Just a little bit about Keller first. We have about 35,000 students, and we serve portions of 9 different cities in the Northeast Tarrant County area. We encompass about 51 square miles and have a little over 2,800 teachers that are in our district. We are currently really, some of you may have seen this, some of you may have not. We are really at a foundation tier, I would say, although some of the things that we are doing within IMS extend into some of the other tiers. The heart of really where we are holistically is at a foundation level. For us, our focus is on making sure that we have a single platform, or what I like to call a landing spot or home base, not only for our students, but also for our teachers. And this essentially, what you see here is what we call K-Cloud 2.0, and it is the landing base or home base for our students and for our teachers. It houses all sorts of apps that they can utilize for things from email to some certain password allocations. That black star document there, our teachers love now. We recently got it added on here because it is actually the curriculum documents for our classroom teachers. Before our curriculum documents, we essentially use Google documents for that. But they were housed within a different platform, and it took 12 clicks for a teacher to get to where they needed to be for their particular course. And so we sought this opportunity to reduce that down and make their life easier, and we just created a button on our home base for them, and they can click on curriculum, and it opens up by content area, and they just select their content area, and then it just goes straight to their documents. Below that, you see a bunch of different tiles. These tiles really essentially are more the learning resources that students and or teachers use. These tiles are provisioned for our users, both our teachers and our students, based on their needs. So if a student has a course that uses a McGraw-Hill textbook, then they would have a McGraw-Hill tile. If they don't have a course that has a McGraw-Hill textbook, then they won't have access to that McGraw-Hill tile. All of our kids have access to some tiles for some intervention services and some other things, but it is all definitely provisioned for our students based on the one roster provisioning components. One big initiative for us really this year, we got to the point where we were having that home landing spot, but we knew we weren't going to make a difference until we started having critical conversations with our vendors and our publishers. So we modeled a letter after another district, which was Houston ISD. They had put a letter in place which they shared with publishers and vendors, which really asked for specific components that they were looking for within their ecosystem. And so we have put that together, and we are beginning having those conversations with all of our vendors. We're currently going forth and doing an adoption for some of our learning resources. Currently, we're doing it for K-8 math and science. And so we are sharing this letter and these components with every single vendor that we are looking to adopt new things with. Additionally, with vendors that we currently or have worked with in the past that we know maybe they don't meet the common cartridge component, we're taking the liberty of sharing it with them as well and beginning those conversations of just saying, hey, FYI, we're working with you now. We appreciate our partnership. We want to continue that partnership, but just so you're aware, as we move forward, we want that single landing spot for our kids. We want our single landing spot for our teachers, and we want to make sure that we're able to provide that for them. The way we provide it is to make sure that we have these components in place. We don't want them having to deal with codes. We don't want our teachers having to have one teacher code and a different code to access instructional resources for their students for each year that a course is in adoption. So some of them are a little hesitant with that, but we work with them and get them in conversation with our technology team. They do a fabulous job, even if some of our smaller vendors may not have that resource, but they have codes, and we're able to work with them so they can help get themselves into compliance with things that work, so that'll work within our system. Some of them may not ultimately meet every single one, and that doesn't mean that we're going to completely kick them out, but we want to make sure we see a plan to move forward. The last thing I wanted to show in here is just this is This highlighted thing is just a component that we've recently added to our adoption cycles. And specifically, previously we hadn't had our tech teams involved on the verification of resources. Vendors send their sales folks to talk with their instructional leaders, the curriculum coordinators, our chief learning officer, but we never really involved technology in it. And so through IMS and through the work we've done, we've realized the importance of making sure that technology is at the table. And so not only do we make sure that purchasing is at the table, but we also make sure that we have vetted out these technology components for the vendors, making sure that what those sales folks are telling us is actually going to implement within our system. Sometimes we find that they might have a cartridge, but that cartridge may not work within our particular LMS. And so we just want to make sure those are vetted and that we know any potential kinks that are there before we show them to our teachers for consideration on their instructional materials adoption committee. And that's kind of where we are right now, and we'd be happy to answer questions later on.
Thanks very much. I'm going to just stop and check before we go any further and just see from Kara whether or not we have any questions that would be pertinent to answer at this time.
Actually, yes, there is a question for Jeff and Joe. How are your youngest learners, so kindergarten through second grade, authenticating in order to access resources?
So right now we do have AD authentication, so they do have a standard login that they use, and the password that they use is something standard in our elementary schools, because that's a little bit of an issue with them. We're looking at other products like a Clever and things where we're doing badging, and we're experimenting with some of those kind of things right now for our younger students, because that is a challenge sometimes.
Thanks very much. So, Tom, bringing together rich interactive content that's accessible from any device takes careful planning and collaboration from teaching and learning and technology. How's Escambia working to meet the need for rich learning experiences for students?
So in Escambia County, we are on a path to transform the learning experience into a more personalized process for every student. We call that transformation Vision 2020, both for when we'd like to be there in the year 2020, and for the fact that we're laser focused on it, trying to achieve that 2020 vision to get to the right spot. We're about 2.5 years into the program, and we've made a lot of progress so far. One of the first things we did was to come up with a common definition of what we wanted the experience to look like. And we worked very closely with our curriculum and technology leaders to come up with this definition. And we're now using it pretty much in everything we do, as far as when we're reviewing products for usage in the district, and when we're thinking about how we want to conduct our professional development for teachers, what kind of infrastructure we want to provide. And the most important pieces of the definition are the voice and choice pieces. We want to make sure that we have digital tools that give our students choices for learning and for demonstrating what they've learned. And so we're always looking to have lots of options available for our students and teachers to use. We've done it a little bit differently than some districts have. We wanted to make sure that we had the right tools to enable the environment to flourish. And so for the past 2 years, we've added a large number of devices to our schools. We now have a Chromebook, which is our preferred device at the moment for every student in grades 3 through 12. And we have other devices available for other types of usage as well. We've also beefed up our infrastructure to go along with our increased number of devices. So all of our classrooms are equipped now with a modern wireless access point, and we've increased our bandwidth. We typically tend to increase by 2 every other year. So within the next 2 years, I'm sure we'll be up to the 14 gig level for our overall bandwidth. Now, as I said, that's a little bit different than I hear other people talking about doing a transformational process, and that we focused on providing the tools first, making sure that there weren't any kind of problems with access, and then usage second. I do feel like it's worked for us. When I look at some of our key metrics for usage, we can see from this chart that the majority of our Chromebook devices are in use on a daily basis. And what I'm most proud of is that we have a lot of students who are using Google Drive as both a collaboration and a productivity tool, because having students create things that show what they've learned is very important in our process. So once we made the tools available, we of course realized that we had some shortcomings with the different digital options that we have. We spent some time looking at our overall digital learning ecosystem, and we came up with this concept of a branding for our digital learning ecosystem. We call it the core, and incorporated into the core would be all of our various content sources, as well as our student information system. We've just added a learning management system. We have an assessment platform, and then all of the different tools that we want students to use to demonstrate what they've learned. And one of the first things we did, based on the work of looking at all of these different pieces, was to realize that we needed a single place for our students and teachers to go to access the components of the core. So this is an example of our core app dashboard that our students and teachers log into to see all of their other resources, with the goal being that all of these resources would be single sign-on resources, so that once the students are logged in, they don't have an additional login to deal with, and that all of the resources are managed so that the students aren't seeing something that they don't have access to. So at the end of last school year, this is where we were with a device for every student, working very hard to make sure that all of our teacher professional learning activities were focused on personalized learning, encouraging teachers to use more flexible spaces in their classrooms, converting our media centers to more of an innovation center concept with maker spaces. And as I said, we also selected a learning management system this past summer that we're now implementing this school year. So the learning management system initial focus is on building master courses that our students and teachers will be able to use beginning second semester of this year, that will give our students and teachers a variety of resources that would be available for students to use to learn, as well as a variety of ways for students to demonstrate back to their teachers what they've learned. And our hope is that over the next 2 years, we continue with the implementation of the LMS, so that by the time we reach the 2021 school year, all of our students will be using the learning management system to help them participate in this more personalized experience, and that they will be collecting evidence of their learning in the learning management system that their teachers can use to see what the students have learned. One piece that I haven't discussed it very much has been our professional learning emphasis. As I said, we we are trying to ensure that all of our professional learning activities are focused around this concept of providing the more personalized experience for every student. From a technology perspective, we don't really do any technology professional learning specifically. We try to partner closely with our curriculum team and make sure that when our curriculum staff are providing professional learning opportunities to teachers and to school leaders, that those opportunities are infused with the technology tools, with the digital tools that we'd like to see them using. And one of the things that we're doing to try to really emphasize this very strongly is that we've tied in our evaluation of our program into our teacher evaluation system. And so the highest level of competency in the teacher evaluation system is labeled highly effective. And what we're looking to do is we're looking to hardwire those highly effective practices that are so important for personalized learning. So we've identified which components in our evaluation system are very important for the personalized experience, and we're measuring what percentage of our teachers are making it into that highly effective range in those components. And as a tool for school leaders and teachers, we're highlighting teachers who are doing a really good job of this so that other teachers can see those shared experiences and can learn from the ways that those teachers have been able to make that shift in their practice. We've got more information about our project available on the web, and so I'll post the link for that into the chat area so you'll have that available, and would highly encourage you to take a look at the resources that we've posted if you have any questions, or of course feel free to follow up with me.
Thanks, Tom. Appreciate your sharing how Vision 2020 is bringing personalized learning to Escambia. And let me just check in with Kara now and see if there are any pertinent questions that we should answer at this time.
Hey, Jill, there's no questions right now, but just a reminder to our participants, if you do, you can use the Q&A or the chat. Send it to us.
All right, thanks. So at this time, let me ask Barbara to talk to us about how the school district of Pickens County has chosen to address personalized and student-centered learning.
Well, in the school district of Pickens County, we have about 16,500 students, so a little bit smaller than my colleagues on the call today. You can see kind of our elementary school, middle school, high school breakdown. We do have a career and technology center. Like Tom shared, we worked on developing our infrastructure first, as well as our digital ecosystem, before we started with one-to-one. So we are now in our third year of one-to-one. We started with a 9th grade for 1 year, and then added secondary, and this year added 4th and 5th grade. So we have about 1 to 3 Chromebooks or iPads in our early childhood grades, and in grades 4 through 12, we are one-to-one with Chromebooks or tablets. And I like this picture right here. It was actually developed in conjunction with IMS Global. But if you look at this kind of pedagogical feedback loop of prescribing instruction, formative assessment, personalized instruction, and then having some kind of summative assessment and reporting and tracking. And this loop is something that goes on not only on a yearly basis, but throughout different cycles of the school year and of the students' experience in schools. We realize that technology will never replace the teacher, but technology is a powerful tool to support the teacher as the teacher is trying to, use individualized adaptive solutions to meet student needs for student-centered learning. So while we certainly are not ever advocating that technology will replace teachers, we do know that
technology can be a very powerful tool to support instruction and to help students to master grade level standards. So I wanted to show that just to show that the focus really has to be on looking at how technology is being used to support instruction. And as we as a district were really looking at how we wanted technology to be used, one of the things that kept coming up with our instructional services team was the desire for teachers to have tools that were easy to use, were correlated to standards, that the teachers could use them in multiple ways as they saw fit to use the platform, and not just in a prescriptive way, the way perhaps the publisher designed their content to be run on their own platforms. So we started out 2 years ago, and this is our third year, with a single sign-on platform, and the one that we use is ClassLink. Our teachers call it Launchpad. So it's ClassLink Launchpad. And this particular single sign-on is very similar to what you saw with the previous presenters, but this has an icon that gets you into everything. It has an icon for our LMS, which is Schoology, for our Learning Object Repository, where we keep all of our purchased videos, vetted videos, and other digital content, as well as cartridges, and that's Safari Montage. And all of our textbooks are here as well as BrainPop. We just have an enormously really long list of the different digital assets that are available. In fact, at the last count, when we looked at ClassLink Launchpad, we had over 800 unique apps that teachers were using with their students. So having a single sign-on platform is really important. And one of the questions that came up earlier was related to early childhood. And all of our students have a network password, a network login with a password. But one of the things that we really like about our single sign-on platform is that ClassLink uses facial recognition as well as QR codes for the early childhood kids, or for students who may have some physical disabilities that makes it harder for them to use a typical keyboard for logging in. So I think that's is some technology that is becoming more commonplace with the single sign-on solutions. This is a picture right here of our Schoology, which is our learning management system, and both in our single sign-on platform as well as in our Schoology, our learning management system, you have links and ways to get to outside third-party publisher content from either the learning management system or from our single sign-on solution. And this particular one just shows how you could get to different videos like BrainPop. The one at the top is Safari Magic School Bus, comes from Safari Montage, which is our learning object repository. And we want our teachers to have a say as to how the content gets used. So if they want to, for example, go from the single sign-on out to a textbook publisher's platform and use the platform, say McGraw-Hill, Think Central, Pearson Easy Bridge, they want to use that platform the way that the publisher intended it to be used, that is fine, and we support that. We also support, in as many ways as we can, ingesting the textbook cartridges into our learning object repository, Safari Montage, so that teachers can build from outside content inside of Schoology, which you see here. It's one example of a build of a lesson where the teacher has taken sources from outside of Schoology and they're bringing them into the learning management system. And our teachers really appreciate being able to use their digital tools either way, to launch directly from our single sign-on platform out to a publisher's website, or to pull a particular asset from another publisher's website back into their build inside of Schoology. So this also is something that we're beginning to use, and as a IMS is starting to really look at how we can develop the technology for
vendors to send information back into a common platform. And in this case, you see Schoology has a master report where you can collect information in grade books based on academic learning standards. And we foresee a time, hopefully within the next several years, that we are able to kind of build a technical specification or standard so that we can have formative and interim assessment data flowing back into some kind of a dashboard in either a student information system or a learning management system, so that teachers can see at a very granular level how their students are doing as they're out working in digital content. So just to sum up, really what was one of the driving questions that we asked is, what are our instructional minutes worth? And as you know, there's a lot of things, a lot of impacts that we have no control over in education. We can't control the student's home life. We can't control how their parents' educational level. We can't control health care. We can't control so many aspects that impact our students, but we can control the hours that we have them in school during the day. So maximizing the minutes that we have with kids matters. And for us, when we started looking at building a digital ecosystem that gave time back to the teachers, we realized if we could just shave off 10 minutes a day from what's my login, what's the site that I go to, I forgot my password, oh, you're not enrolled in that class yet because you just came into my class last week and I have to get you into the textbook. If we could save teachers and students time, just 10 minutes a day adds 30 hours back to a teacher's classroom every year. So it's very powerful when you're able to, at a system level, provide a digital ecosystem for teachers and students that maximizes time, which is, a critical resource that helps us impact kids each and every day and each and every year.
Thanks, Barbara. And it is so true. Those instructional minutes are so valuable in every way. Let me check in with Kara and just see if there are any questions specifically for Barbara.
No, Jill, no questions right now.
All right. So now I am going to turn to the panel with some questions, and I will remind our attendees, if you have questions for any of our guest speakers, please feel free to enter those through the chat or the Q&A. Let me ask anybody on the panel or everyone on the panel, as you think about all of the folks who are new and just getting started, what first step would you suggest to a district who is looking to start building a digital learning portal or a digital learning environment? Anybody want to start? What's a good first step?
This is Barbara. I'll respond to what we did. When we were first starting this, we sat down in our department, in the IT department, just with a marker and a large whiteboard, and we wrote down every system that we supported as a department, whether it was administrative software, instructional software. We wrote it all down. And then we kind of categorized it into administrative software and the instructional side. And what became obvious to us very soon into this hour-long kind of event that we were participating in was how far we have moved from locally installed software to cloud-based software. And that most all of our applications that we were being asked to use were now web-based. And we started thinking then about how that data gets passed back and forth between companies and starts getting used. So my first suggestion would be for districts to take an inventory of the instructional systems that they currently support, and then make a list of prioritizing them. So for us, we could see very easily which were our 3 or 4 main software applications that we used. So for us, it was Safari Montage, BrainPop, ClassWorks, at the time Edgenuity, and then our textbook publishers. We also made a list of all of our textbooks, and I'll be glad, Jill, to share that link so that you can share it with people. But we made a list of every textbook that we had in our district and the publishers, and we started working with the top 3 publishers first. And for us, that was McGraw-Hill, HMH, and Pearson. And reached out to them and told them that we wanted to work with single sign-on. We wanted to work with one roster. And at the time, one roster was just coming out. And so many of the publishers were just beginning to move to this. And started the conversations just, I think it was Tom who said who said they worked with that with procurement. But just reaching out to those companies and starting the conversation about moving to single sign-on, and then selecting a single sign-on portal. I mean, you saw all of us have something. So deciding on what's going to be your main portal into all of these digital applications that you have and use in your district.
I think building on what Barbara said, I mean, I think the most important thing is access and ensuring that your students and teachers have access to the materials. And so putting that list together, prioritizing the list, because obviously you can't do everything all at once, and then determining how you're going to provide that access, one by one to those different resources is a great first step. And then as you tackle the resources that you can tackle, then you start looking at your renewal and procurement process to see if there's anything you can do to that process to help you tackle those that you haven't been able to get so far.
And the one thing I'll add to that is you got to know from the beginning, this is Jeff from Keller, by the way, you got to realize from the beginning that all of your resources, you're never going to really be able to capture probably every single thing. When you look at your core big providers, we've mentioned Pearson, HMH, McGraw-Hill, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's one component. But when you look at a lot of your specialty courses, they probably aren't going to have a lot of these components in place. When you look at the instructional materials, obviously for a band class, that's one thing. But when you look at like your CTE resources, some of your upper end things, I'm learning that I frequently hear the higher ed is kind of an excuse from a lot of our vendors says, well, that's a higher ed title. So like some of our AP titles that they don't have common cartridges for, and they don't have different components like that to help embed things into our LMS. Some of our higher end CTE classes also, we don't have those. But I think the key thing is just starting. So getting out there, starting having the conversations with vendors, making sure that you're having conversations with your teachers and your coordinators and people on the instructional side of your house, because if technology is moving in one direction, you're just going to land and have all these cartridges and things and components just sitting there in one place and nothing really being done with them. So you got to make sure that not only you're gathering that, but you're implementing it as well and building that capacity within your teaching, within your teachers, your coordinators, and it truly becomes a part of an embedded part of everything that you're doing within your ecosystem.
Thanks, everybody. So let me check in now and just see if we have any other questions from our participants that we should address.
Sorry, Jill, I got kicked off the audio for a second. Yes, there are some questions. The first, for all panelists, how much metadata are you looking for in a learning object? And how do you use metadata for younger students?
This is Barbara. I'll try to answer that. It's a really interesting question on the metadata side, because that's where I feel like probably all of the publishers aren't necessarily on the same page. with what the real need is. And it really, in some ways, may depend on your learning object repository and your learning management system. But we have some cartridges where the only keywords for you to do a search on are the words in the title of the asset. And if the asset is titled Worksheet 1.1 or 10.A, it really has no meaning if you're searching for it. And we have others, the McGraw-Hill ones, for example, are connected by standards, so you can search on them based on your state standard of learning, and they have more keywords. So Houston ISD has actually put together, and it's on the IMS website, a very good kind of list of the things you should look for in any kind of cartridge or asset for the metadata side. But knowing what your particular learning object repository or learning management system can ingest for the different assets is very important, so that you know what to ask for and then how to get a sample cartridge to look at it to decide if it's something that you want to purchase or not.
I'll piggyback that a little bit. One thing that we're struggling with is just getting machine readable TEKS standards in our districts, which are the Texas standards. The state has recently adapted, readjusted. Our standards are constantly changing, and they constantly change by subject matter. And so it's difficult making sure that some of the vendors are working from those most updated TEKS and most updated machine readable, ideally, so that we can add them in and make it work a little more effectively within our data systems. When it comes down to it, even when vendors are pushing stuff out, their folks might look at a standard differently. We always joke that you get two math coordinators in a room and they may not agree on the standard that's being taught. But the bottom line is, ideally, they're doing some meta tagging. We're not really there yet. That's a different tier of implementation for us in Keller, but we are looking at and starting those conversations. So to us, the number one thing that we'd want to have looked at with regard to the standard with meta tagging is making sure that standards are taken care of in some capacity.
And I think this is an area definitely that we need some more development and growth in, because just from the limited amount of experience that I've had so far, really this school year, we found that the metadata tags on some of the content has been inadequate to meet the teacher's needs. They really want their content tagged to the most discrete standard level, and we're not seeing that in all cases. As Barbara said, sometimes it's just the title that is searchable, and that's really not satisfactory for the teachers. They need more information related to what the academic standard is that's being addressed, what type of reading level the content would be, just as a couple of things.
All right, thanks, y'all. To kind of go back to our main topic around, rich learning environments and student-centered learning, let me ask you to think about how your ecosystem is providing more student choice and voice than it did without interoperability. As you've talked about your system and talked about what components you have, maybe you could sort of overtly make those linkages and connections for our attendees and how you think, what you've done technologically is helping make that possible. Anybody want to address that?
Jeff from Keller again. We've displayed a lot of different stuff with regard to virtual course options. So situations where students don't necessarily have to be in a direct classroom with a face-to-face certified teacher. And part of that has come out of need for having not enough certified teachers in some certain areas, but over the last 5 years, we've really dramatically increased our virtual courses that we've offered, particularly at our high school campuses. We have CTE classes offered as it's a 100% virtual course, and we have world languages courses offered even for high school credit down to the middle school campuses. Each of our middle schools here in Keller have Spanish, but we are all now through this program able to offer German, French, Spanish, and Latin for 8th graders for high school credit. And additionally with that, we are utilizing our own certified teachers to be doing that. So rather than outsourcing that to a variety of vendors, we utilize our own folks, provide some extra duty opportunities for them, and really gives our students choice within their course guide. Do I want to take Spanish 1 as an 8th grader in a traditional face-to-face setting, or do I want to take Spanish 1 as an online learner? And then they continue on and can take Spanish 2 online as well. And moving forward, that's really important because when we talk to our higher ed partners, a lot of students now are taking courses when they get to college in an online environment. All courses where they're going aren't traditional face-to-face. They're not all sitting in those large lecture halls anymore, and more and more universities are moving that direction. Are all of their classes online? No. Some of them are, though, and students have that choice to be able to pick and choose where. And we're offering, we're happy to say we're able to offer that same opportunity for our students to choose in some areas which direction they would like to go with regard to taking their coursework, face-to-face or more of a virtual option.
So I think that one of the things that we're not seeing a lot of opportunities for is for various ways to use the interoperability standards to assess students in a variety of ways. That is, other than just a traditional assessment, to gather information about the learning experience. Where I do think that the standards have really helped us is to be able to bring together content from multiple sources into a single source for use, bringing content from multiple learning systems into one learning management system or one learning object repository where it can be located, and then the students and the teachers can select different ways or different objects to use to improve the student learning. So that's where I think we've made some success, but not really very much success in choice of ways to demonstrate how you've learned so much.
And I would agree with Tom that is a huge ask from our teachers, and it's because we have been using the single sign-on and the interoperability standards with digital content for now into our 3rd year. Our teachers are starting to really ask for the ability to get information back into, in our case, Schoology, our learning management system, from all of the different places where they go. And right now, Brain Classworks allows that, but that's the only one that we've been able to get information back to. And I know the Learning Tools Interoperability Standard allows for kind of bidirectional transfer of data, but that's the only one that we've been able to get. But that, I really believe, as Tom said, that's the next problem that we need to solve to really utilize digital learning tools more effectively for student-centered learning.
Great. One of the things that we've seen very recently with the development of our Competencies in Academic Standards Exchange standard or case is that we now have the ability to, in an interoperable way, transmit rubrics. And so hopefully in the next year or so, we'll begin to see some efforts and ability in the marketplace to transmit some different ways of assessing students and bringing back data that gives us some new ways of finding information about how students are learning and getting that information about their performance in a different way. Well, I want to say thank you to all of our panelists for their sharing today and their participation. So thank you very much to Jeff Radley and Joe Griffin, Tom Ingram, and Barbara Nesbitt for sharing your wealth of information and expertise with all of our attendees today. And just let me also suggest to all of our attendees that with IMS members from our 50 school districts, including half of the top 10 largest school districts and representation from 45 state departments of education and over 180 K-12 suppliers, our collaborative is leading the effort to rapidly advance an educational technology ecosystem where students and teachers have better options for digital tools that work together and result in more effective teaching and learning. You can see some of the logos represented here from our members. Our innovative leadership networks work together to produce resources of benefit to the entire K-12 community. Access these resources at imsglobal.org/K12. These resources include recordings from previous webinars and related resources, things like case studies and articles and videos, and more to help districts of all sizes begin to transition to a fully integrated ecosystem. Information about opportunities to collaborate with IMS members is available, and procurement resources, including RFP language and checklists that districts can use when procuring digital platforms, apps, and tools is available. So be sure to check those out. Ensuring that your educational technology tools are IMS Global certified is the best way to establish a plug-and-play ecosystem that allows all of your tools and content to work together. If you're just starting out, you should review some of the resources IMS Global has developed to help you know what to ask for from your vendors and what to include in your RFPs. IMS Global offers assistance to our members who need help or guidance determining their needs. The IMS Certified Product Directory contains the official listing of products that have passed IMS Global interoperability testing and certification. Visit the product directory to see all of the certified products. Join us for the next webinar in our series, Cultivating a Marketplace of Plug-and-Play Tools for Student-Centered Learning. Registration is open, so we hope you'll sign up now. And please check out these two very valuable resources on the IMS Global website in our K-12 playbook that are related to today's webinar. In particular, I want you to note that the video shown here includes teachers from Barbara Nesbitt School District in Pickens County, so be sure to check it out. So a couple of action items as we wrap up. Check out those resources that I've just mentioned, and be sure to visit today's webinar detail page to gain access to all the resources that have been shared during today's session as well as the recording. You'll be receiving an email following today's webinar with information about where to get that information. And thanks again to everyone for attending. Have a great day.